Thanks for joining us today. Today's edition of Ask a Leopard Owner takes us to Alex and Antoine on a Leopard 50 sailing catamaran. Before introducing Alex and Antoine, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Chris, and in addition to having been a Leopard 45 owner myself, I get to work with members of the Leopard community, helping to share their stories of adventure, curiosity, and exploration on their Leopard. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's episode is being recorded and will be published on leopardcatamarans.com in the coming days. In other words, don't worry about writing everything down. You'll receive an email to this video once it's published. To submit your questions at any point today, go ahead and click the Q&A button at the bottom of this screen. We'll do our best to answer all of your questions, but if we run out of time, we'll share an email address at the end to submit your questions. And lastly, there's a 2-question survey that will pop up after we wrap up today. We'd love your feedback so we can learn what you liked and things that we could do better in future editions. With that out of the way, let's take a look at what we're going to cover. First, we'll learn about Antoine and Alex and why they chose their Leopard 50. They'll share some insights on what it's like sailing with kids. They'll go through their upgrades to make live-aboard life a bit easier, and we'll have a dedicated session at the end for Q&A. So Alex and Antoine, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're currently anchored on a mooring ball, because I see you swaying around in the background. So I think it's one of the two.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Yes, we are right now on a little island, anchored off a little island in the US Virgin Islands, which is lovely. That's our first time here, and we've been enjoying it very much after sailing all the way up from further south in the Caribbean. So yeah, my name is Antoine. I'm 36. I was born and raised near Paris in France, but I spent a lot of my holidays with my family near the coast, near the water or on the water. And I went on to study at the University of Sydney in Australia and moved there. And that's where I met Alex about 10 years ago.
At the sailing club. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex, originally from Mozambique, a country near South Africa, for those of you who don't know. I moved to the UK to complete my bachelor degree and then moved to Sydney to do my master's degree at the University of Sydney. I was a bit curious as well of what sailing and everything was about, because growing up in Mozambique, grew up on the coast, very much beach life and a lot of fishing with my dad. So not so much sailing, more on the fishing and sort of speedboat side of things. And then when I moved to Australia, I was just curious about the sailing world. And that's where I met Antoine at the sailing club at university.
Amazing how curiosities lead you to places. And here you are on a boat in a beautiful island in the Caribbean. Lots of different sailboats out there. Any of us who have been to boat shows, a lot of them, if you're just the casual observer, like look very similar, right? Big white fiberglass things with big metal, metal sticks in the air. What drew you to a Leopard 50? How did you end up on this boat?
Well, they're very similar, but some look better than others, right? And we can all agree on the sexiest boat out there. Yeah, so I guess we discovered the Leopard 50 for the first time at the Sydney International Boat Show. I think near when it was launched in 2018 or something. And we've been looking at boats, just for fun for a few years as we were into sailing. But yeah, when we stepped aboard, we really feel like, wow, this is a dream boat. Maybe, who knows, one day we'll get to have one. But yeah, what we really liked about it, first of all, is the space and the airiness of it, like how bright everything is, especially compared to other boats that we sailed before on. And especially because myself being 6'4", I do need quite a bit of a headroom because I tend to hit my head in a lot of places on most boats. So yeah, space was a big one, and we really enjoyed how the layout is set up for the Leopard, particularly the 50, and found that it was very comfortable and plenty of room for ourselves, our two young kids, 8 and 4, and also any friend and family who might come and join us, because we feel like sailing and adventures is best when shared with the people we love. So yeah, a lot of space. Comfort is of course a big one, especially with young kids. So we want to be having enough room and to bring our life aboard. So we need to store a lot of things because we're living on board with the young kids. And yeah, just spend a long time on the boat. We need to have everything we need and be comfortable. But all that also, of course, often has a cost, and the costs tend to be performance is not as good as other boats because, of course, to get more space and comfort, you're a bit heavier and bigger. But we found the Leopard were quite a good compromise on that note. Like it does sell really nicely for its size and weight. So we found it was the right balance for us in terms of how different catamarans fit next to each other. Safety, of course, was the big one because we are sailing offshore, long distances with kids, young kids. So we want to make sure everything goes well. So Catamaran in itself is a safety factor for us against the monohull because there's two of everything, two hulls, two engines, and more stable, less rolly. So it's good for kids to not risk falling overboard. And they got more space to play as well.
And the front door. So the 50 specifically, or Leopards, the front door is a huge safety feature for all of us and the kids as well. We've been through bad weather and storms. So that door is really a game changer for all of us. Like if anyone was feeling sick or the kids wanted to run around, and it really brings air through the cabins and the galley. Game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay both for comfort, for airflow, and for safety, as in you can be outside but protected
to check the sails and everything. You don't have to go around the side of the boat, so that's huge.
So that's a safety factor for us, and we really enjoy that. And even the lounge itself on the roof is great because you can be up there, have good visibility, and you can work on the mainsail without risking to fall from the roof. So that's all that makes it very nice and safe. And we've been through pretty rough weather, and we never had any doubt that the boat would handle it well. And that was great, especially with, the family. Quality, of course, that's always a big question when you buy a boat. You want something that's going to last a distance and not let you down. And we found, the Leopards were really well built, particularly the interior. We really enjoyed the way, all the cabinetry and the furniture is put together, which I think is quite unique on different manufacturers because all the rigging and sailing parts are quite often shared because they all come from a third-party manufacturer, and a lot of brands use the same one. But what's directly built, like the hulls and the furniture, we feel like was really well done. And as part, I guess, of safety, we did enjoy the helm position. So that's always a big debate, I think, in a catamaran community because there's pros and cons. It's always a compromise. Often, some manufacturers put them all the way at the back near the transom, which is really nice to get a good feel of sailing when the conditions are great, but it's probably not a great place to be when there's some rough weather.
Which has been a lot of that lately.
Which does happen, right?
We just zip up the helm and we're...
you can be pretty exposed. And then other boats have it, all the way at the top, which is cool to have a great view and when you're, having a beer, a sundowner on anchor. But here again, you can be then quite removed from the rest of the boat, and it can be difficult, especially if we want to look after kids or knowing what's going on under. So we feel the sort of spot top, as it's called, helm being midway. You're still connected to the rest of the boat. You can talk with people, you can see what's going on, but you still have a decent view of around the boat, and it's great to sail it. So that's one of the features we like as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When I was on my 45, that helm position was great because to your point, you're still socially connected to the rest of the boat. So whatever's going on in the aft cockpit, and you still have good visibility, and it's a great piece. So I just want to add two builds to this. So the quality and build of it. So you all are in the Virgin Islands now, huge moorings and sunsail base for Leopard, and the origins of the Leopard brand actually come from charter, and a lot of the design elements and ease of being able to access different systems on the boat, the engine room, and just different elements that need servicing, is really all designed so any base in the world, anyone who's qualified to work on it, because the goal, at least in the business case on that, is to be able to turn the boat, make any repairs, and get it out for the next charter. So it needs to be easy to access different systems and easy to maintain the boat. So anyway, I found that origin carry through to the design of the private yacht sales and the private yachts that you guys are on, because it's super handy to have easy access to different systems. I've crawled around different boats. I'm like, who designed this and why is this there? And who could ever reach that
How
particular
do you
thing
get
to
there?
service something? I'm like, what? Anyway, so that connection and that kind of history back to the the charter business, I thought was just an important one to pull out in this.
I agree with this. Yeah, we found, after a few months and exploring every nook and cranny of the boat, we found it's nice and easy to be able to access everything and everything's working, because there's always going to be a need to maintain or fix things.
And you fit in the engine rooms, which is great.
Which is nice. Yeah. There's always never enough room though, regardless of what engine room there is, there could always be more space. But
but yoga involved, that's right.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit, so you all are, more and more we see younger families out there doing this, which is awesome, especially when you think of what you can do with your body now versus what might be challenging and, at some point in the future. So tell us how you got to the decision to actually just take the leap and do it.
Yeah, so you're right. So we always thought that, it was a dream, as Antoine said, went to the boat shows every other year in Sydney, and it was just a dream. We're like, okay, when we retire and this is the goal, we'd work and save up towards that. And when the kids are at uni and all of that, because, life with two kids is quite busy. And we've always kept traveling, and we chartered every other year in Europe and New Caledonia and stuff boats. So we knew it was a bit tricky every time. It was just a week, but we're like, oh, kids on a boat and stuff. And then they got a bit older, and then COVID happened. And I had Maddie during COVID. So for about 3 years, we didn't see family because we're both expats in Australia. And all of that, made us think, when could be the next lockdown or the next time we see family, or, unfortunate events that could happen with family. And we're very lucky to still have both sets of parents. And yeah, they come and visit, and the kids can still have time with them, and we can visit our friends. So it was a great start that we got to start in Europe to visit all our friends we hadn't seen in a few years, and family on board that we never really get that time. So the other factor in that is, as most people know, with the way things are going and, job wise, we just felt like it's a good time now for both of us, which is probably rare as a couple, where, someone's probably enjoying their job more than the other. And we're like, it's a good career break now, because if we try and switch or get a new job now, we'll probably be another 5 years until we want to jump and sort of pack up everything. So we're just like, it's a good time for both of us. And I think you can always make excuses not to do it, but it was very quick. We're like, okay, we do it now. And we had a few months and we packed up and we just made the decision to go for it, because you can make excuses not to. It's easier as well. But once you get going, it was really exciting. So yeah.
And the trigger was because we bought our Leopard 50 secondhand, right? The trigger was we found one for sale. That everything we wanted at the price we could afford, and we're like, oh, we just can't miss that. We were planning to maybe do it a little later, a year or two, and we're like, you know what, let's just do it. Because that might not come again, such an opportunity.
Yeah, I ended up buying my 45 new, not because I wanted to, I was obsessed with a brand new boat. It's just there weren't any 45s available on the used market. So I would have totally taken the path of buying a used one if there were. So completely understand the scarcity, found a boat that fit, and go make it happen. Have you both? So 50, I'm looking at pictures on this screen. It's even when I first got my 45, I'm like, that's a lot of boat. I was very intimidated by it. Have you all done this before? Is there kind of a long history of sailing in your family, or was this like, hey, we started with Hobie Cats and then we jumped up to the 50? Like, how'd this happen?
Pretty much the latter.
Okay.
And also, with my parents, and I've got two brothers, we were always near the coast on holidays and sailing dinghies, Hobie Cats quite a lot, windsurfing, kiteboarding, wakeboarding. And we did do a couple of charters when I was younger with my family, and I really enjoyed this. And so back maybe 5-6 years ago, I thought, because I was in Australia and I wanted to spend some time back in Europe with family and friends, like, hey, maybe it's really to just get everybody on a boat and spend some quality time together. So I started doing a couple of charters. So we did a few in the Med.
Started on monohulls.
The first few on monohulls, and then we, graduated to Catamaran, and it was, never going back. Because it's so much more space and comfortable, especially with a lot of people, because we did tend to pack quite
all the kite gear and all the toys.
Plus all the water toys, So we did a bit of this, but never more than a week or so, and never offshore. so we didn't really have the ownership experience other than owning a hobby cat. and we did get a question in when we rocked up at the marina where the boat was for the first time, and people were like, "Oh, you're the new owner." I was like, "What did you have before?" I was like, "Well, nothing." Yeah, people were quite okay. Yeah, surprised.
You're crazy.
And people putting their fenders out on next to their boat.
Extra fenders.
Yeah, the first time I reversed it, out of the sleep to go get some fuel at the dock and get it out marina. I was, being very, very careful because, it is a big boat the first time, but you get used to it, and it's very easy to control. Like any other catamaran, you can just rotate.
But we chartered cats around 40, 42, so like for a week at a time. So it was a little bit of a step up, but it's a lot of boats. So it's and the visibility sometimes and the kids running around. So no, it was a bit of practice, but you have to jump into it. Like, how would you know otherwise? So So
how was it to get the insurance being new to sailing big boats like this?
Yeah.
So what was
the insurance because you did a bit of that was a very interesting one.
We have, I guess, the luxury of having 2 citizenships, so we could try 2 different countries for insurance. We found some insurers were not too excited about the idea of and not having much experience going onto a big boat like this, but some other were okay with it, and we did find one that was very happy to insure us and for reasonable premium. But it could get a bit trickier, and I understand in some other countries can be a bit difficult.
That's a good point, actually, to start looking into that if you're looking at buying a boat. Whatever factors you might have, because there's a questionnaire. So that's a good point.
So just to set this up a little bit from a timing standpoint, when did you all close on this boat?
When did we close on it? That was June last year. So we met the initial offer in at the start of 2024. I went to see it in March because the boat was in Northern Europe. We were in Australia, so that was not very easy to organize. And and then close it in June after going through all the.
Okay, so a handful of time you've had the boat. You've covered a lot of ground, right? You picked up the boat actually in Europe, in Northern Europe, if I'm not mistaken, and then now you are in the Caribbean. So the tee up to this is kind of, what kind of sailors are you? Are you like, let's go hang out in the marina for a month at a time? Or I feel like it's the latter, just based on the ground you covered and the title of the slide. But tell us a little bit about your approach to sailing.
So the idea was every time we chartered, we felt a week wasn't long enough. So we're like, okay, we'd like to, get a bit longer. And we thought a year and a bit we were planning July last year, sail across to the Caribbean, sail back to Europe, finished. And that's coming up September this year. We would maybe sell the boat again, go back to Sydney. We thought we'd cover a lot of ground or have enough time to relax and see everything. But turns out you have a lot of fear of missing out in every location you go to. At least we do. Like as we are today, every stop we go to, we hear of the next best spot and we just can't stop moving. But also because, weather-wise, it might make you move a bit faster. But some people do choose to stay a month at a time in certain places. But I think the initial rush is because we bought the boat a little bit late, I guess, in the season, if you think about it. June, July in Europe, and then you're supposed to cross in November for new sailors and also getting to know the boat to do the upgrades that Antoine will talk about. It started to get a bit rushed from the beginning. So we headed to France, did some electrical work, so that set us back another month. And then the storms start rolling into Europe that time. So you have to get to the Canaries, and we're like, okay, after we get to the Canaries, we'll relax after the crossing. That's it. And we arrived in the Caribbean and we're like, wow, there's so much ground, so much to see, like on land, on the water. And we've just loved it. But now I think we'll have to have a chat soon if we're going to extend further than September, because the world is a big place. So that was the initial decision. We're like, we have to see as much as we can because we're going to finish in September, but I don't know if that's going to happen anymore. We might have to keep going. Because our plan is to go back to Europe now in May. So there's a lot to see here in that time.
I love it. So which means you probably have to clean the bottom of the boat not that frequently, because you're always moving. Stuff can't grow.
You'd think so, but I don't know if we do like paint or if we're doing something wrong. But in the Caribbean, it's growing very fast.
It's very hot here.
The water is warm and it happens quickly. So Here's a quick slide of places you've been. I love the layout of this and the format of it because it's awesome to see all the fun you're having. So maybe walk us through a little bit of where you've been. If you had to pick a favorite in here, like places to go back to, right? That's always a good threshold for me. Is there a place that you go back to and why?
Right, yeah, so a lot of places.
Can
We'd
do
go
the
back.
start where we started, and
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll go through that. But yeah, so we picked up the boat in Denmark, so Northern Europe, which is very cold. So we can only get it a bit later in the season. But that was actually a beautiful place. If you've been or heard about Greece, we found it was like a green version of Greece with a lot of little islands everywhere, cute little towns. So that was fantastic. I probably would love to go back, but it's very far. So
We'll charter.
we'll
I'm not
charter.
sailing back.
Then
Yeah.
we made our way down. So you go through Germany. There's a canal actually to cross the length of Denmark to get to the other side from the Baltic Sea to the North Sea. From there, it gets a bit rough. A lot of shipping, a lot of currents, nasty brown water, and bad swell. But anyway, we made our way down to the Netherlands. We sailed through Amsterdam, like literally through the city of Amsterdam. You can go through after a few locks, which is really cool.
That was pretty cool, yeah.
Made it to the north of France. There's some beautiful cliffs, as you can see here, and kept going our way, making our way down to the west coast of France. We stopped to do a refit because there's a lot of resources down on that side of France, like a lot of boat companies. So we spent a bit of time there, and then we rushed through Spain to avoid the first storms from the autumn. And made it to Portugal, and then crossed over to the Canary Islands.
Well, Madeira and then Canaries.
Madeira, which is part of Portugal, and then Canary Islands. And the Canary Islands is where most people crossing the Atlantic start from. We did this with the ARC, the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers, which happens every year at the end of November, and there's about 150 boats or so. Which was a lot of fun and very nice to have a community of like-minded people crossing together, because it is quite an adventure, going offshore for 15-20 days. So it's a great experience. And we landed in St. Lucia after 19 days sailing, which went pretty well. That was it kind of became a blur at the end, but yeah, we didn't break too many things, and we had reasonable weather, so that's good. And yeah, from there on we just made our way up and down the Caribbeans, so the Grenadines, then the French islands of Guadeloupe, Martinique, Antigua, which was really nice, Barbuda next to it, and then up to Saint Barth and Martin, and then the British Virgin Islands, and then the US Virgin Islands. So here we are. Yeah.
What's your favorite? I'll say mine after.
Yeah, it's a tough one because they all have their pros and cons.
Yeah.
I was saying I actually did enjoy Denmark a lot. I would love to do more there, but the weather is not that great, so that's a tricky one. Antigua, really enjoyed it, and the BVI's actually, I mean, I think there's a good reason why there's so many charters here, because it's a fantastic place to sail with a lot of nice coves and bays, and nice sandy beach as well, and bars, and a lot of life. So I guess that would be the top three.
Yeah, I think Antigua and BVI definitely, because they're islands in themselves with other little islands as well. So especially for sailing and cruising, you can just go into, it's always a bit of different landscapes, and for snorkeling, and again for there's little bars and restaurants, but it's still quite preserved, so it's not that busy compared to other places maybe that you would go. So you still get that nature element to it, but also can pop in for some nice pina coladas when you want to. Have a bit of fun. Whereas the other islands, they were beautiful, and we spoke about this, we'd also love to fly there because there's so much to do on land with a car, which we did rent as well. But for sailing, some of the islands were like, just super deep to anchor, or just not as cruiser friendly in that way. Whereas around here, it's a bit shallower and you can anchor, and just more cruiser friendly, we found, especially with catamarans and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. Definitely makes me have a little bit of FOMO not being on my boat, for sure. So well done there. What is it like sailing with kids? So you have 2 kids I can see in this picture. How old are they, and what's that experience like?
So when we started, Max was 7, Maddie was 3. She turned 4 in the Atlantic Crossing, which was a fun little birthday party. And Max recently turned 8. So um, it's been easier and harder than we thought. I think it's a good age for sure. Again, the boat helps a lot because we actually made the decision to not put nets on the outside. I know a lot of people do, but we put nets at the back and we're like, let's see how mostly Maddie goes because she's the little one. And we just haven't needed to put them because they understand the limits. Again, that front door, I never have to worry about them running around. The access to the top as well, like you're just always inside of them. So in terms of like boat safety, that's one. And then you just have to stick to the rules if they need to wear life jackets when they're in certain areas of the boat, if they need to tell us where they're going somewhere. So from a safety perspective, I think that's always kind of like a little panic sometimes if you're a parent, but they do adjust quite well. And then the rest of it, honestly, the days go by fast. So you just throw a paddle board and they can go snorkeling and keep them busy. Other days where it was more challenging in Europe where we had really long days because of the tides. We couldn't stop. We had to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. sometimes and go for 10, 12 hours, like sunrise to sunset. Those days were a bit trickier. The ocean wasn't great. So, a bit of screen time here and there. But actually for the crossing, we told the kids Starlink didn't work, which was great because it did work, but they charged per gig. And we were like, we are not doing this. And obviously kids do better without screens. So yeah, 3 weeks and we had 5 adults on board with the 2 kids and there was enough stuff. We did, have Legos and all the toys that we go through, board games. They help with the cooking and the cleaning because they want to. They're like, Mama, can I help with doing this and putting the dinghy down? And so the crossing was actually much better than we thought. When you get, on land and you need to provision and it's hot and they can get a bit cranky. But I always joke, like if you pack enough snacks, it's fine. Everything works out. Just pack enough snacks is my advice for all of this. But no, they're okay. It is challenging. I think the hardest part is school. And that's with every parent that we met. And Maddie copies everything Max says. So he goes, school is boring. And she's like, yeah, school is boring. I'm like, no. So you just have to make it fun. Yeah, and it's actually not as 8 hours a day like they do at school. You get your basics done and you let them play. But yeah, I think we're also lucky they for the most part get on. There are always arguments, but they do play together. It's a 4-year age gap. Yeah, they're going all right. I think schooling has been the tricky part with motivation. When you see a turtle and they want to jump in and snorkel and you're like, sorry, you have to sit down for like an hour. So that's the hard part, but they're getting used to it. It's only been 6-7 months, so yeah, it's
one of the big challenge too is the social aspect, right?
Yes,
because obviously they don't spend 8 hours a day at school with their friends anymore. So that can be a bit tricky because sometimes, hey, I miss my friend, or they obviously get bored of adults because we're not exciting people for them, right? When daddy's busy sailing or fixing things. But there's plenty of families around, and there's apps like I think you got a screenshot of this one in Newfoundland, for instance, where you can put a profile and see filter and see other people that have got similar kids, similar age. So we try to meet up, which is really great. Yeah, WhatsApp groups as well. So it's a great way to meet other families and spend time with them, which can be tricky as well because often people gotta leave one day to one place or come back or move around. But
or some are going north, some are going south. They're like, oh, we just.
But at least now we get to meet them, and that's great. And yeah, everyone's got a similar experience, and it's always nice. And thanks to having, a 50, we've got plenty of room for lots of toys and we can invite all of the
play dates. We have the play dates.
And accommodate all that. So that's been very good.
Yeah.
Are you still seeing a lot of other families with kids similar ages out and about?
Yeah, it's been interesting because there is this thing with the weather and hurricane season, so there's always people either going north or coming down, and I feel like we kind of rushed. We were like in the middle, and we actually met some family yesterday like at the beach, which was really nice, through the WhatsApp and Newfoundland community, but they were in the same situation where they hadn't seen other kids in a couple of weeks, and we felt the same because everybody's either really south or really north in the Bahamas. So it probably is because of how we're traveling as well. But we do every now and then, and sometimes it's more Maddie's age than Max's age, and he's like, where are my friends? But at the end of the day, like they end up all playing together, even if it's a younger, older kid. That's the beauty of it as well. Like we've been in Guadeloupe, the marina was great, and there were kids like from 3 to like 15 and all the range, and they were all over the boats and everybody was playing together. So that's another really good benefit. It's not, when you're at school, it's everyone's your age in your class. And here they're just all, and Maddie's the following everyone. And so yeah, we do every now and then. And we're actually trying to buddy boat from today to Puerto Rico. So when we can, all the boats are very similar. We try and like get the kids together. They're easier as play together. Yeah.
That's great. Pete in the Q&A said, your kids are learning so much in the world. It must be an awesome experience for them that, they'll look back at and say, hey, remember we did that cool thing? That's amazing. Speaking of amazing things, let's talk about the features that you love on your Leopard 50.
I'll cover this one. Antoine will do the electric. So I think we mentioned a few of these. The forward cockpit, so that whole area at the front as well, the way it's done, I think you can see in that middle photo with Antoine and his two brothers. There's sort of a bit of a cozy element there. I don't know what you would call those.
Yeah, the black sort of support
there. And the very loungy area there in the front cockpit. There's a little table, and it's kind of like protected and ingress, so it's not off the sides and the kids can run around. In the Atlantic crossing, we put little pools there because it's actually under, so they're not on the net, they're not on the sides. For us, it's great if we're ever, need some air, or if anyone's seasick, like that's the go-to is just open the door and go to the front to get some fresh air. And there's also some beds there to lay around. So we really love that front area. The other one is the upstairs lounge. The access is pretty good. There's many ways actually as well. We love to have our sunset drinks or dinner there. But during the crossing, that was also really nice. But as you can see in that photo, it's amazing lounge up there. And it was one of the features that when we first got on the 50 in 2017, we're like, wow, because it's different, it's spacious, it's very comfortable. You can see your sails from everywhere there as well, and you don't get hit by the boom. So we've been enjoying that as well when you're under sail, and it's very pleasant to be up there. And yeah, the other one we've mentioned is the front door. Like it's just, game changer. We love it. For air, for safety, for the kids, for everything. It's pretty much always open.
That was one of the favorite features on my boat too, that front door.
It's so simple, but yet so good. It makes a huge difference to everyday life. And the fact that because there's that sort of that's going forward, it protects, so you can still have everything open even when it's raining. A lot of boats, if you open the windows, you get wet, and they don't seem to realize that it rains a lot in tropical areas
every day.
So that just makes sense. It's surprising that other boats don't do the same. So you protect it from the sun, protect it from the rain, and you've got a lot of fresh air.
The galley hatches are always open. And we've got protection from the rain, and at the front cockpit as well.
And it's amazing. I'm sure you've had the similar experience where you've been in some big seas and you get a big wave when the door is closed and you're on the passage, and it turns into a little fish tank for about 5 seconds, and then the water drains at the bottom. But it's a it's a really good feature. Let's talk a little bit. You all have made some electrical upgrades and refits to just suit how you're using the boat. Let's walk through that, and there's a follow-up question they may ask depending on what you cover.
So that was my nerdy self having a lot of fun with this and doing a lot of research, thanks to the community as well, because a lot of people did similar upgrades to their boat and share them on social media. But we wanted to make ourselves as comfortable as possible and as self-sufficient as possible, because no one likes running engine or generator, or dealing with having to dinghy and take a taxi ride to go find some gas bottle or this sort of thing. So one of the main things we changed was to go all electric for the galley. So getting rid of the gas oven and the gas stove and putting induction and one of these combo air fryer oven thing, which is easier to clean, safer, especially with the kids, not having open flames on the boat. And it makes the boat less hot as well, because more of the heat goes into the cooking itself. So that's a really good upgrade. But to do this, we need to have obviously more power available, bigger batteries, and bigger inverters, and ways to charge these batteries, right? So a typical upgrade we saw of other owners were putting a lot of solar on the boat. So one way to achieve this is to cover as much as possible of the coach roof. But obviously there's lines and sails, so you can do a bit, but not that much. And the other way is to build, a custom frame at the back to put some panels there. And these panels can be the traditional, outdoor house panels, which are very efficient and very cheap. So we were able to put, 4 pretty, sizable panels at the back and 6 smaller ones on the coach roof. And that gives us, a total of more than 3 kilowatt peak. And that works pretty well. Like we've seen it, reaching 2.9 kilowatt on occasion. Even though in the Caribbean, there's often cloudy weather, or because it's winter, there's not that much sun hours of the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a good upgrade. But we still have to rely on the generator every now and then, if we're making water or it's been gray weather or if we got a lot of people on board. But at least the bulk of our consumption comes from is provided by solar. And then to store all this, of course, we need batteries. So the typical upgrade is to go to lithium batteries. And in this case, because we had quite high power needs, a good suggestion we got from another owner was to use a 48-volt system instead of a typical 12. And that means you can have smaller wires, you get more efficient inverters, and you get just less loss because there's less current going through your wires, right? So that's a good way to go, and that makes the components simpler and cheaper as well, actually. The one challenge still is most of the boat equipments, like your instruments and your windlass and your lights, are all 12 volt, right? And replacing everything would be very costly and very time consuming. So the trick is to find a way to convert the 48 back to the 12. And we were able to find a pretty innovative device from a company in Australia, and I'd be happy to take questions about it later. But yeah, a device that does a conversion from 48 to 12 or from 12 to 48, so it's bi-directional. And it hooks up to your alternator as well. So when you run your engine, it charges the 48 batteries from the 12 volt of the alternator. And when you're just running off batteries and you are switching on your windlass, well, you don't even need to run your engine because there's enough power coming from the 48 volt batteries being converted to 12 to run your windlass. So that makes the system very nice and easy and efficient. And yeah, we don't need to worry about having to turn on the engine to, we got the dinghy platform as well. And to raise the dinghy, usually you need to have your engine running, but we don't need that, or for the windlass and your anchor as well. So yeah, that works really well. But I think, as I did read, people say you never complain about having too much solar, and we could definitely use even more. And I'm sure there's some way we can
put solar everywhere. More panels.
Yeah, we've seen people do even more, and that's was a good idea because it makes your life even easier.
I think we're okay. I do all the
more is more in this particular instance. Tell me a little bit about the battery, the buffer piece of this, and how that fits into the overall system.
Yeah, so as a suggestion from the company that installed them, like they still felt, because we're sailing offshore long distances, it would be good to keep systems independent. And so even if something failed on the 48 volt side, we would still have a sort of traditional 12 volt battery that could at least keep us going for a little while to safety. So yeah, we only have the engine batteries and the engine batteries are 12 volts standard, and the house batteries are 48 volt. But we did add a sort of small 12 volt buffer house battery, which is in between the 48 and the engine alternators. So it doesn't get used, but it's there if any of the electronics or the 48 fails for any reason.
And how big is I might have missed this, but how big is the battery bank, the 48 volt battery bank?
If a 20 kilowatt hours, so
okay. Oh, I see that first bullet point. Yep. Nice. That's great.
Which is surprisingly small. Nowadays with the lithium batteries, like that's basically 4 batteries that are, the size of a small suitcase, and they fit perfectly.
They fit very well,
like down to the millimeter to where the other batteries were before.
Amazing. That's perfect. So you have a lot of perspective and experience doing long crossings, which require a lot of thoughtfulness around provisioning. A lot of tomatoes here. So give us, as folks who are thinking about crossing oceans and doing these, epic passages, what should people consider as they're planning to do that?
Yeah, so initially I did think of provisioning as more for passages, but even as we are now in some areas where, you know, less access to supermarkets and stuff, all these tips apply. So when you go to islands where, you know, there's more access to supermarkets, I would sort of load up and stock up and still use these tips everywhere as well. So this was my sort of first big food shop for the Atlantic crossing. They do say to sort of provision for 28 days if anything goes wrong. I was praying we wouldn't be on a boat for 28 days, but I did stock up for that. A few tips that I got from different places. So I followed other families on YouTube or Instagram. The Atlantic Rally that we joined as well did have a seminar on food. So it was kind of a combination of everything, but a few good tips and sort of what we do is when you're buying all your products and everything, cardboard. So get rid of it as soon as you can, because that's so much space on recycling. Like when you're doing the crossing, you don't want all this pile of rubbish, and just in general. And then bugs and things that hide in there as well. And it can get really soggy. So just try and get rid of that as well for space and all of that. So that's one thing we did with everything that arrived. Another great tip was vacuum sealing meats. So a lot of the time in many places in butchers, you can just sort of order that. We did buy a sous vide machine and we did that ourselves as well. But it lasts longer in the fridge and freezer. So I would always do a mix of both, but vacuum sealing sort of prolongs it because there's no oxygen in there. The freezing fruits and vegetable, I have like fruit and veg everywhere, freezer, fridge, and cans. So like anything that, you know, you might, for example, we don't have a gas issue, but if there's any electrical issues or you can't cook or you want some fresh stuff, or some examples of the crossing that we had was, you know, the freezers go out, like what are you going to eat? So just have a balance and a mix of everything and sort of different options in case things do go wrong. And it's just also better for storage, right? You got a bit in your fridge, a bit in your freezer, and a bit sort of in all the seats in the galley. Another good tip was washing the fruit and veg with a bit of vinegar and water. So as you can see here, I think that some of those photos we were like dunking our fruit and veg. That cleans them as well, but also the bugs. So there's little eggs and things that can be laid on there. You don't want to get that during your passages and contaminate all your other food. And it does make the food last longer. So we did have all this food for 3 weeks without any issues. So that was good. The canned stuff, we do use a permanent marker on the top because when you're, you know, in all these waves or even in calm seas, you're trying to get through all the, you know, the storage and you don't know what's a chickpea, what's tuna, what's what anymore. You're taking everything out. So we just labeled the top and it's so much easier. You'll just find it faster. Yeah, then you do your research on what needs to be stored because there are, you know, your potatoes maybe need to be stored differently or not together with certain things, and bananas and onions. So do some research quickly on like where things should be stored in a cool, dry place. So do you put it in your, you know, in the galley storage, or do you leave it out in the nets and things like that? So just do some research quickly on where is the best place. And the last point I already mentioned. So I try and vary into fresh, frozen, and canned because you never know. And then you can always change it up.
Is there a resource that you would point folks to in terms of knowing which vegetables to store with which, you know, the groupings of things?
Not really. I just Googled it. Yeah, depending on what it was.
All right. Yeah. Ask ChatGPT or Google. And,
yeah.
Get other answers.
Yeah, ChatGPT now, you can put in a list of things and it will even provision for you. So I actually had a spreadsheet, but it will provision for you. Yeah.
Well, these people we met just yesterday on the Leopard 58 say they've got a little like hydroponics setup so they can grow their own salad.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Our next and we do make yogurt on board now. That's another thing I didn't add. We have not done this or known about it for years, and now we are not going back.
So simple. So
make our own yogurt. We've got a bread maker. So all those things that you can take away from like storage space. So like as yogurt maker was just so much yogurt that these Frenchies eat all the time. We had, you know, him and his brothers and our friends. It was just way too much yogurt. We didn't need any fridge space. So you keep cans of the milk powder or your long life milk away from the fridge, and you can use your fridge for other stuff that you need. So yeah, making yogurt, making bread, started making hummus as well. And there's just so much you can do. But yeah, trying to get as much out of the fridge as you can.
And with the cost of eggs, soon you'll have a chicken on board, right?
We're getting coming. I think it's coming. So Antoine went to the supermarket after our chat yesterday. He's like, it was $15. He's like, we're not getting eggs. And I was like, no.
It's crazy. I think the chicken is a great investment. And then you can have this whole like expert advice on how to have an egg raising chicken on the boat.
Hydroponic salads, so they can
yeah. Resourceful. So if you could go back and kind of talk to your previous selves before you embarked on this journey and have a conversation, um, what advice would you give your previous, non-boat owning self as you go to embark on this journey?
Yeah. Yeah, there's obviously plenty of things, but I guess a sort of general idea, but in our case, because everything was, fairly rushed into just moving into the boat, making it our new home, starting sailing quite fast, long distances with kids, and not having that much experience beforehand. It was pretty intense, to be honest. Like, and I spent, most of my evenings since we moved on the boat, like probably working more than at my job before. Just spending hours researching, systems on the boat, weather, navigation, places we're gonna go, all that. And yeah, one of them being the boats, learning all the systems of the boat. There's the kids knocking on the door.
This is real life example of kids on board.
So yeah, spending all that time to learn how everything works on the boat, because you know that before. So you've got your engine, you got your rigging, you got your water maker, you got electrical systems, and yeah, because we're so busy with everything else, it took a long time. And that can be an issue because a good example is during the survey, it was flagged that one of the AC unit was not working because of some issue with a leak or something. And we were in Northern Europe. It was not very warm. We didn't really care about it. We sailed all the way down, but it was autumn, so it was not very warm. And then we sail the Atlantic and we arrive in the Caribbean, it gets hot. And we want to turn on the AC for the first time because we never took the time to try it. And then it didn't work, but not just the one that was flagged, all the other ones as well, because of a bigger issue. So, not spending the time yet to really check everything, learn everything is can be a problem, because when you're in your home marina and you've got all the services, maintenance and mechanics and Amazon deliveries next to you, that's nice and easy. But if you're in a remote place, everything gets a lot harder and you regret not looking at things before. So yeah, if you can, don't do what we did, rush to sail the Atlantic after only a few months of owning your boat. Make sure you spend time to learn how everything works. And get comfortable, repairing and fixing if you plan to sell offshore and you don't have anyone available, especially secondhand, because we got less access to, there's no really handover process. Things like
So two questions, maybe three. So the first one is just a tactical one. How do you keep your windows so clean? There's a lot of glass on that boat. I remember I was always doing windows on the boat. Are you just using a squeegee? Or is it?
We're using the children. No,
I forgot you have a little workforce that I didn't have.
It's weird, but Maddie loves Max too, but they love cleaning the windows. I think it's the little spray and put a squeegee now. It took us a while.
They don't really do a good job, kids, so I usually have to do it after.
We do it after.
No, it looks on the camera, but it's not that clean.
It looks great from what we can see, so nice job. Rory has a question. He says, have you ever been stuck not being able to get into a marina given the wider beam of the 50? Have you ever been boxed out of non-catamaran spots?
Right.
That's a good question. Portugal. There was some in Lisbon, but there were options.
Yeah.
But it's also, we did the north of Europe, which, the locks and everything were really narrow and stuff. But I guess we didn't notice because we had options. But
yeah, no, because we tend
to,
when we're not sure, we would try to call ahead and book. Otherwise, no, it hasn't happened because I mean, it's big. In some places, we definitely came as the biggest boat they had ever seen in a.
But that was in north of Europe.
But no, it hasn't been too much of an issue. But
we do research before.
There's always a T head somewhere, so usually you can find a place. Can you talk a little bit? So this one's from Pete, and he was curious on how you handled the Atlantic crossing. Was it just the two of you and the kids, or did you have other help to help with just shifts and watches and things like that?
So luckily we did have 5 adults and the 2 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, usually, so the ARC requirement is you have at least 2. We do know friends that did it, the 2 of them with the kids, which we like to sleep. And it's just in case things go wrong. So the 5 adults was good because I was basically towards the end of it, I was almost off the shifts because Maddie was waking up at 3 a.m. wanting me, and it was just not working anymore. So I did the sunrise after, and that worked well. So having 4 adults that can do, you know, 3-hour shifts was perfect. And then we managed to just always have like a lunch and dinner together because everybody was rested. It wasn't like, you know, drawing it out. So we were never exhausted because you have to do, I don't know, 6 hours, you know, or three, and yeah, just one or two adults together.
Yeah, that's great. And then back to this idea of knowing the boat. I think so. It's really wise advice. I often would find myself just like simulating that I'm out in the ocean when I'm at the marina, right? So actually disconnecting the shore power and just pretending like there is no having to rely on solar and the generator just to actually see how the systems work. And if something does go wrong, you can obviously plug back in and troubleshoot what's happening there. So
I guess the great thing nowadays, and probably the reason we were able to do it is, we got Starlink. There's internet anywhere. It's a game changer because YouTube is here, and there's every single system on your boat. There's someone on the internet that's a video of how to fix it, how to take it apart. So that's definitely very helpful.
And safety feature because during the crossing, you know, there's things that break. Luckily, we were very lucky, but if other people need help and things, just keep connected, especially when every country you might need a, you know, different SIM card and stuff. Like having Starlink and connection was,
everywhere we go, we always have our communication, our weather, and documentation, basically.
Yeah, super helpful. What would you do differently? So you've been at this for a while now. You've covered a lot of ground. The answer is on the slide, but tell us a little bit about, you know, what you might change moving forward.
I think we got very lucky because we talk about this, but like, for example, the purchase of the boat, we got very lucky with everything having turned out what we wanted, and the Leopard and the boat and everything being what we wanted. What we would have changed, and we talk, is like just the pace, because we do not realize there's just a lot to see. And you know, the weather is, you know, there's always a factor. So you are kind of moving with the weather and things like that. But just, we do want to see more of places. And, you know, when you meet a family with kids and the kids are getting on, and try and slow down. But that might be something that we're considering now, as we mentioned, like as September is approaching, we're like, do we just, you know, keep going but slow it down? Especially now we're going back to Europe. We're like, should we just go, you know, maybe Sardinia and Corsica, and we just bunker down there and tell our friends to meet us so we can actually just be in one place for more than 2 days. Because that, you know, just to do all our sports and get everyone together and stuff. So I think we'll try and take our advice. We'll keep you posted because we seem to not follow advice and slowing down. We'll get to Europe, and after 2 days, we're like, let's move on. Let's go to Turkey. Just we'll keep going.
You know, there's so many good napping spots on this boat, and I still haven't tried them all.
So that's what he would do differently.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, easier said than done, trying to balance the wanting to see everything but experience a place and leaving room for the unexpected, right? Because sometimes awesome things pop up. You're like, I wish I could stay for another day.
Yeah.
What type of advice, right? So there, you know, a lot of people who join these, or if they're watching it on YouTube after we've done this live together, are thinking about going on this journey, right? So they're at the consideration, they're wanting to do it, but they haven't yet taken the step, or maybe, you know, some folks are waiting for their boat to come or looking for their boat. So what advice would you give to those folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So funny enough, we put that try before you buy, but the fun fact here is we had never sailed a Leopard before buying it, but we had sailed all the other ones, at least all the competition, and we'd been on board. So we knew from, you know, just being there and watching all the videos and the reviews and knowing what we didn't like with the other ones, we knew that was the right boat for us, and we were not disappointed. We absolutely loved it since we moved on board. But knowing it is hard to judge from just you know, videos or photos or reviews, and it's great to appreciate, you know, how everything works together, how functional the space is, how safe it is. You know, a simple, almost stupid thing like I was just mentioning before, like having the cover for the sun and the rain, that makes a world of difference, but it's not obvious until you go on another boat and you realize, well, that's not good, and you get this boat and it's great. So try before you buy. That's always helpful. And, you know, it's like houses, and you'll know the one you like when you've seen the other ones that you don't like. And obviously a big one is always budget, right? So everyone says, yeah, it's important to budget when you're sailing and cruising. It is, but we find it very difficult because there's so many unknowns and unexpected things, whether it's you change your plans or something takes longer than expected, or you got a piece
shipping and everything
gets damaged, you need a replacement, or user error. Like I figured out that a lot of things that we have to work on and replace, it's not really the fault of the boat, it's the fault of me for doing something wrong. So it's hard to budget, but I guess so we took it as just make sure we have a big buffer, so we don't have to worry too much about it. So that means buying a boat within your means to have enough of a buffer, so yeah, you can take the unexpected and you can sail maybe longer than you planned for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, the next one is just communicating with anyone visiting you about the unpredictability. We kind of knew this, but we still tried to get people like visiting certain islands, certain dates, and still it was too much in advance. So I think tell your visitors, look, get your main flights to, I don't know, for example, here like Miami or whatever, and then let's talk 2 weeks before where you're flying. Some people actually do it days before, that we've met other cruises doing that. But it's just, it puts a lot of pressure on you, and you don't want to be going to other islands when the weather's not good. It's also not safe. So yeah, just maybe communicating that if you're having visitors, that it's just completely unknown, and they have to be okay with that. Otherwise it's just not going to work. And even the same for the return. Sometimes they arrive in one island or port, and they have to leave from a different one because that's where you're going. So I think just being very clear and being flexible.
We've had to do a shuttle between.
Yeah, we're not doing that again.
Go there, drop someone, go down, pick up someone, and
you have to do immigration in and out of different islands and things like that. So it's been a bit tricky, but for the most part, everyone obviously understands, but just communicate that and don't do that to yourselves. The other one, yeah, I think the schooling, again, it's great. We have Starlink. Depending on what country or what states, Australia is different to the US. So we haven't had to follow along the same as, for example, in some of the states in the US might have to, or France. But the schooling systems, just ask your sort of homeschooling department if they have any regulations and how that might work. But otherwise, just also having flexibility in the times. Like we tried doing the Monday to Friday, that wasn't really working. And now it's just like whenever there's no swell and it's good, try and get it done in the morning. Yeah, the kids are like, is it Saturday yet? I'm like, doesn't matter. Like it doesn't apply to you anymore. We just do school. It is school when you need to do school, and when it's not great, then you don't do it. So I think just, yeah, having that flexibility around school and changing your mindset about, the schooling sort of, yeah, having books, having internet, and the rest is nature and excursions and geography and everything that they're soaking in.
I love it. On the visitors and communications and expectations on just the uncertainty of it all. Someone once said, you can pick you can pick the time or the place, but not both, right? We can meet you on Tuesday, but it might be some other place. Or yeah, I can meet you at that place, but it might be on Thursday, right? Like you can pick one of the two.
Yeah.
Is there a moment where that you've been scared on the boat? Just kind of going through, the winds creeping up or whatever the situation is, and just maybe share that. I think the realness of that is helpful.
I don't know if yours is different to mine, but I'll share mine. The Atlantic crossing, we did it with the Ark. There was one day that the weather turned. The one day that the weather turned, like it was the 1st of December, and I won't forget. And unfortunately, at around, I don't know if it was midnight, there was someone overboard in one of the boats.
Wow.
Another boat had an engine issue, and we had our instruments, one of our friends had turned it off because there was an issue, and the boat sort of steered into the waves. It all happened 1 hour after the next, and that night I was like, oh, like this is 1 week into the trip already, and I was like, okay, this is a bit scary. We're almost in the middle of the Atlantic now. The weather's changing. But we had been in rougher seas in the north of Europe. But I think in your head, when you're like close to shore, it's different. So I was, confident in the boat, but it was just everything together. It just kind of like dawned on me. And it was obviously not a nice feeling knowing that a fellow sort of crew had gone overboard, not on our boat. But yeah, that was a one-time, I think, for me. I don't know if you...
Yeah.
Different fears. You have different fears to me.
Yeah, pretty less. Yeah, but yeah, there was a few rough passages where we had one going from Portugal mainland to Madeira, and yeah, we ended up in 10 feet plus swell and 30-35 knot gusting, but at the back. So we're surfing, you know, pretty fast on some pretty big waves.
For 3 days straight.
So,
3 days
you know, I was up there while everyone was hunking down below and pretending everything was okay. Yeah, that was, you know, I didn't think for a moment there would be an issue, but yeah, it is pretty impressive. Like when you're on, you know, steering a 20-ton boat down a base,
We were going into the waves.
Base at like, you know, 12 knots, 12, 30 knots. And yeah, that
was our
pretty
first
impressive.
offshore proper as well. So I think there was a lot. That was our first, yeah. And 3 days straight of that was a bit intense, but we got there faster. That's the plus side. It was supposed to be 5 days. We were there in half.
Was horrible.
So-
Everyone was fast.
Yeah, you know, that's I feel like I think we've all had those moments, and they're, you know, looking back, you learn stuff about yourself, you learn stuff about the boat, and you're like, okay, you know, we can actually, you know, endure a bunch of moments. And I appreciate you just taking the time to share your story and your perspective. You know, to folks who are watching this on YouTube or on demand somewhere, if you do have questions, please send a note to Katie. And then for all the folks who have joined us live, please keep an eye out for a 2-question survey that will pop up right after I hit the stop button here. But thank you, Alex and Antoine. Really appreciate it. And fair winds and calm seas. And I'll see you somewhere warm and beautiful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.